Okay. All right. Guru Maharaj, would you like to give a little update or should we jump into the questions?
Well, update. Keeping busy here. The seasons are changing. We're gonna have rain, big rain coming tomorrow, a little early for California, but weather is a little erratic everywhere these days. But it's another beautiful day in eternity here. And I wrote a small book. I don't know if I mentioned before, it's entitled Sakya Pranay. I finished the first draft. I'm going to send it out for some copy editing, some parts of it. It's a nice little book of verses that take one through the Bhagavatam from the end portion, the Seish end portion of Krishna's Kumar or childhood lila up into his Kishore lila, the verses that go through the Bhagavatam, which is an emphasis in the Bhagavatam that is not given to the other sentiments of Vatsalya and Madhurya. So in other words, the Vatsalya focus in the Bhagavatam is exclusively on the Kumar lila, and the Madhurya emphasis is on the Kishore lila, a little bit of Paganda lila because Kishore starts to shine through there. But it's one of the interesting characteristics of how the Bhagavatam has dealt with the paternal love and showcasing it through the three. So I've just shown that. It's a nice little book. It's you can memorize the verses, and that will serve as a nice meditation. And what else? I have, one of my disciples wrote to me about some propaganda on the internet against Bhakti Siddhanta, Saraswati Thakura, Prabhupada, from a devotee. I know the devotee. He came to visit me through a couple of my disciples. So I was nice to him and all, but apparently he's gone off the rails. I would say he's tried to board a train that left town, the station, a couple of decades ago and burned and crashed. And he's trying to get on it. All these old and tired arguments against Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his mission, despite the fact that his own persons of his same ilk derived their faith from Gaudiya Vaishnavism from this Bhakti Vinod Parivar of ours. It's largely a misconstruing of details with principles and opinions based on innuendo and inaccurate innuendo analysis of historical events and so on and so forth. So anyway, I bring it up, so it was recently brought up to me, and it's old and tired, but I would love to have a conversation with this person or his present gurus and teachers so that I could mop the floor up with them and throw them in the Ganga. But if anybody, I bring it up because if anybody has run into that and it's caused some question, they're free to bring them up, those questions here. I've got all the answers you could possibly want and more. And you are the answers for that matter. You can't argue against your own bliss, right? That would be very foolish. So with that, let's take the questions of the hour.
All right, well, let's start with Prem Mantra's question. He says, Dandavats pranams, Srila Guru Maharaj. Sometimes I hear about the nuances of the three types of Vaishnavas, namely kanistha-madhyama, and uttam. Then kanistha-kanistha, kanistha-madhyama, kanistha-uttama, and so forth. But I could never figure out how it is what is the kanistha-uttama or uttam-kanistha frame of mind? How does that work? Could you give an example? How about the illiterate brahmana from South India, the one that Mahaprabhu meets with, who apparently didn't have deep knowledge of the scriptures, but had deep love for Krishna? Would he be an example of an uttam-kanistha?
Well, I think that there's a couple of ways in which this topic is addressed, that being three categories of devotees, kanistha-madhyama, and uttama. One way is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and your question pertains to what is said there. Another way in which these terms are addressed is in the Bhagavatam itself, in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, where it talks about a level of realization, the realization of a novice, the realization of the intermediate devotee, the realization of the uttam. Whereas in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, what is being discussed is the measure of eligibility for treading the path. And now these two are different, and at the same time they kind of blend in and merge with one another. Excuse me. But therein Rupa Goswami speaks about different degrees of faith, which would determine or distinguish between the three. But in doing that, he invokes the scripture, because faith in the scripture is the kind of, and the argument that's descending, if you will, is what we mean by faith. There's faith, driven by the different modes of nature, addressed in the Bhagavad Gita, maybe I think the 17th chapter, different types of faith. In the Bhagavatam, the four types of faith are discussed in the Uddhava Gita. So faith in Tamaguna, Rajaguna, Sattvaguna, and transcendental faith. And with regard to the latter, the fourth, Krishna says, faith in me, that's transcendental. And so, and me also means the revelation, right? So he's the source of the scripture, as he himself says in the Gita. So Rupa Goswami says, faith that is weak and not very well informed by the scripture, this is the characteristic of a neophyte, and that type of eligibility will not be as great for applying oneself into practice, whereas faith that is firm and in agreement with the scripture will be stronger, and faith that is superlative, that understands the scripture in a dynamic way, and can speak about the scripture and reason about it in different circumstances, and come up with arguably new texts and so on and so forth. This is superlative faith. So you ask about the Brahmin in South India who didn't have any knowledge of the scripture. So what's his position? Is he a kanistha? But he doesn't have any knowledge of the scripture. So the argument that Rupa Goswami is giving there, or the explanation he's giving there, it doesn't depend on knowing a number of verses or being affiliated necessarily with, informed necessarily with all the different texts. It's said that in this regard, Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj was illiterate, but obviously he was a superlative devotee. Go back to the Bhagavatam for a moment about the three types. Well, you have one who has faith. The neophyte is characterized as his realization, or her realization is that they have insight into the idea that Krishna is God, but they can't put it together that the God Krishna is most fully represented in the senior Vaishnavas. So they worship the deity, but they may disregard the Vaishnavas. Not a good idea. Not so. They're and then the middle devotee has discrimination. 4 types of discrimination. He discriminates who is God. The deity worships the deity. Embraces devotees of a like disposition, peers. He ministers to those who are less advanced, and to those who are envious, he avoids them. So the middle one is characterized by realization. It gives rise to the power to discriminate. The neophyte can't discriminate, and the Uttamadhikari can't discriminate either, because he sees everything is coming from Krishna. Everything is in Krishna, Krishna is in everything, and so on and so forth. So that's a long explanation on the subject, and I'm still trying to be brief, but your question is, how can someone be a kind of a beginning kanistha, a beginning uttama, a kanistha-uttama, a beginning uttama, or a middle uttama, compared to an uttama. And how that would relate to the Brahman in South India who didn't have any knowledge, what was his position, and so forth. He didn't have any knowledge, but every time he picked up the Gita, he wept. He wasn't weeping because he didn't have knowledge, but he was weeping at the fact that Krishna was driving the chariot. Krishna's God, he's driving the chariot of Arjuna. That's the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita, right? From a Gaudiya perspective, that's there in the first chapter. People skip over it sometimes, the first chapter, but this the whole Gita is found there. Krishna's God, he's driving the chariot of Arjuna. Oh my God. That's incredible. So obviously he was advanced and he didn't know the scripture, but he had faith in and realization of the scriptural arguments, if you will. So anyway, what is a kanistha-uttam or a madhyama-uttam? Well, in different ways of talking about that. I would say that if you would, that the stage of the madhyama in general is one where this discrimination starts to take place. So you can see there's a lot of gray here, but the discrimination is what is characterized by nishtha. Study of the Bhagavatam, which is the logic of the scriptures, and that it's a commentary on the sutras, which are the logic of how the whole scriptures all work together and so forth. So it's engaging fully one's intelligence, and then applying oneself, accordingly. So understanding the scriptural argument well. This is idea of madhyama. So if we take it there, having attained nishtha, one is a madhyama, go to ruchi and asakti, you're getting higher levels of madhyama than bhava bhakti. So bhava bhakti is the ankur, the seed of bhava bhakti sprouts. You can say there's a kanistha uttam. He's an uttam. That's a tapasiddha who's attained bhava, but the sprout has not turned into the full fruit of praying yet. And so there's a sadhana that goes on there. And as he progresses, he's in the middle stages of uttam, and then attains prem, or turns rati, which is synonymous with bhava, turns the sprout of that rati into the flower of rasa. And then he or she is an uttam. Uttam, right? Pujapad Sri Ramakrishna talked about this in another way, and his statements are really derived from and developed from and poeticized from, if you will, the teaching in the Bhakti Sandarbha, where Jiva Goswami says that there are 3 types of Mahabhagavatas, great devotees. One example of the first type, the lowest type of great devotees, is Narada Muni, after he left home and Krishna showed himself to him and then disappeared. This is Narada, as a, I forget the Sanskrit terms. And then the second type is Sukadeva Goswami, who was fully self-realized, he was self-realized, but had not attained prema. So he was walking naked and so on and so forth. And then the third type, which is the highest, is example is again Narada Muni, after he receives his spiritual body, and now he's traveling with his Vina and so forth, right? Sridhar Maharaj, without referencing Bhakti Sandarbha, but I am making the connection from there, where he got this. He said that 3 types of I think he applied it to gurus. One has both feet here, but his eyes are there. Again, you think of Narada in the beginning. The second one has 1 foot here and has extended another foot there. Sukadev. And the third one has 2 feet there and extends 1 foot here. Bhagavat Prapta Deha is the term of Jiva Goswami. In this world, in a spiritual body. It's hard to find one of those, like a Narada, right? So you could look at that reference for 3 types of uttams, 3 types of Mahabhagavatas. It's another way of looking at it, and there are nice examples given by Rupa Goswami. If we conflate it, it is possible the term Mahabhagavata, great devotee, with Uttam Adhikari, and we have 3 types. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Sadhvi.
Okay.
Dandavats Guru Maharaj.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Yes.
I hear you. I see you. Looks like you're in a vehicle or something. Now you disappeared and I can't hear you.
Okay, let's take another question and wait for Sadhvi to come back on. Let's see. Okay, Abhay Krishna has a new question. He says, my question is one of those, it doesn't have to all fit between the ears kind of question that used to bug me for some reason. It's the whole thing about Haridas Thakura being an incarnation of Brahma in Mahaprabhu's lila. I used to want to understand exactly how this worked, if Brahma stepped down from his position, or if it was a partial manifestation of Brahma, or a different explanation. I know there is perhaps not a definitive answer to this, and I felt at peace to just know that this was seen by those with love of God, and I don't need to know every detail. I still feel this way, but recently the topic popped back into my head and I have a new idea, that being the demigods are in Braj. They are different from the earthly demigods, and I assume they would be a Nitya Siddha type manifestation in the unmanifest lila. Could this have been the manifestation of Brahma that was in Mahaprabhu's lila? Thank you for any thoughts on this.
Well, first of all, there are devas and devis, gods and goddesses, in the lila. In the aprakat lila, the unmanifested in Goloka, They're gods and goddesses, and they're devotees. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami talks about different types of dasya rasa. And one of them is adhikritya dasya. So it applies to the position of a Brahma or a Shiva or an Indra, these principal gods of Varuna, and Vayu and so forth. Those positions are a type, if you will, of they represent a type of dasya rasa. So we find Brahma, whoever that Jiva is, right? In Krishna Lila, that Brahma, that particular Brahma, moving from this adhikritya dasya during the Brahma Vimohan Lila into Sakhya Bhava. That's what we find. Now, your question is, well, he's appeared in the Gaura Lila. So I guess you're wondering, how does that work? What happened to Brahma? Where Brahma's supposed to be? I guess that's what you're thinking. He's in charge of the world. How did he enter into Gaura Lila? What happened to Brahma and so forth? And there's different ways, you can think about that to kind of push back, if you will, on your intelligence and your reasoning's appetite to consume everything and then rule the day and so on and so forth, and be the judge and jury on everything, right? Which is what you're talking about. But we have example, one way I'll answer it, of in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Gopakumar becoming a Brahma, because Brahma's post was vacated by a set of circumstances. So there's a need to repost somebody. Obviously, Brahma didn't die. The post, in other words, had not expired. But for some reason, the Jiva, who was posted as Brahma, acted in such a way that the post had become vacated, and it was filled by Gopakumar, by Krishna's, by Narayan's arrangement for some time, right? So experienced the Brahma, which is another example of how one can attain the position of a Brahma through karma, through jnana, and even through bhakti. It's possible. Sometimes Krishna himself is said to take the role of Brahma when nobody else is qualified in the world. So we can look at the situation with Brahma Haridas as having moved from this adhikritya dasya to Sakhya, developing through the Brahma Vimohan Lila arranged by Krishna for his benefit, that in the context of that, there's an appearance of some offense to Krishna and his friends, the attempt to separate Krishna from his friends and so forth. So this is thought to be something that needed to be worked out, right? In order for him to fully attain the position of one of those cowherd boys, which was his ideal, right? So that's a cause for him to vacate the position, for arrangement to be made for him to vacate the position of Brahma, take birth in Gaura Lila, and fully develop his bhakti there. In the Navadvip Mahatmya, I believe it is. I believe it's in the Mahatmya, or it might be in Navadvip Baba Tarangi, shorter book by Bhakti Vinoda, also about the glories of Navadvip, the Babas of Navadvip. In one of the two books there, it's mentioned that he aspired there to attain he lamented that he had not attained the form of a Goloka, so he's working on it. So obviously he's in a Brahma's post, but bhakti has come prominently into his life, and so some arrangements made. So someone else would have then fulfilled the role of Brahma in the meantime. So maybe that's a way that you can satisfy that voracious, doubting vehicle. Not a bad thing. Mind, or excuse me, the intelligence. We should doubt, question, if you will, but it can rule the day ultimately, right? Some things, as you said in your question, don't fit between the ears. Hope that helps.
All right. So Sadhvi had some problems with her phone battery, but she's back online and she has her question ready to go.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. My question was that while we are chanting, on what motivation we can concentrate. I was thinking like of 3 scenarios, more or less, like we would like to end our suffering here in the material world, or we would like to be happy in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world with Krishna, or we would like to serve for the sake of Radha Krishna, we would like to serve them with this motivation. So can we like actually choose motivation or direct our mind on a certain motivation while chanting? Although we are not on that position, I'm thinking.
Yeah, in general, there are some recommendations, but one recommendation with regard to what you said is to chant with the idea, let me chant this. I'll tell you a story that I used to stand, I've told this before, so forgive me for repeating myself for those who've heard it more than once, but I like to tell it, I like to remember it. So I used to stand next to Prabhupada's Vyasa-san on the right-hand side every morning when he would give class in Los Angeles. In the early years when I joined, he was in Los Angeles for about 3 months in the spring and 3 months in the beginning of the winter. So I had spent a lot of time there with him. And anyway, I had my place and I would stand so that I wouldn't fall asleep, because we didn't sleep much in those days. And if you sat down, you could easily doze off. So I would stand and I wanted to hear every word Prabhupada said. And he would begin, the program would begin once he sat on his Vyasa-san with kirtan. And then he would give the class. So he was chanting Jai Radha Madhava as he would. And so I thought, I don't really know the full meaning of these words, what they mean to Prabhupada. So they don't mean that to me, but I know that they mean that. What they mean to him is just incredible, what it does to him. So let me chant just to please him, just for his pleasure. I know these names give him pleasure. Let me chant these names just for his pleasure. And his ear is right there, and I'm standing right there, and I'm thinking like that, chanting. So I'm chanting, and Prabhupada turns over and looks at me, and his eyes become very big, and I could understand who he's understanding how I'm thinking, And so then he gave the class, and the class ended. And when the class ended, then there would be a short kirtan. And so, different devotees would want to lead the kirtan. In this case, there were 2 or 3 sannyasis present. And they were a little bit, one was taking the microphone, other one's grabbing the drum. And there was a little bit, just kind of a minor, who's going to lead here, And Prabhupada stopped them and said, no, let this boy sing. He pointed to me and all eyes were on me. I don't know if I'd even led a kirtan ever at that time. So I led the kirtan. Next morning, same thing happened. Prabhupada said, let this boy sing. So I can understand that was very pleasing to Prabhupada, right? To chant the names and think for your pleasure. So this is one way. Or I've heard other teachers say, we should chant with an idea, let me please Krishna, Radha and Krishna, Krishna and Balaram, it would be a case both by this chanting. They take pleasure in hearing their names, something like that. So that's a little bit like the last of the 3 suggestions that you made. Now, in Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami gives a dhyan, a meditation, to accompany the chanting of the Mahamantra. the kirtan. And he says it's a visualization of Radha and Krishna, Gopas, Gopis. He gives the whole group, right? Mm-hmm. Which would include all of the principal rasas of Braj. And that's just an aside. If you want to play it out, what's being said there. Underneath the banyan tree, the big banyan tree, which is central to it's kind of the yoga pita of Sakirasa. But at any rate, with everyone there, underneath the banyan tree, I chant this mantra, thinking about my mind on Braj, with the desire to enter into the community and become a member there. So he's given a meditation like that. And that could be specified as a Saka, as a Saki, and so on. So these are higher, both of the things I mentioned to you here, Jiva Swami and the example I gave, higher kind of aspiration than let me become free from suffering, let me control my mind, let me control my senses, and so forth, where a sadhaka may be more that may be more real, how they feel. So then the question comes, should I think of the higher thing, even though I'm feeling like this, the lower thing, and I could put more feeling into the chanting, perhaps, if my orientation and meditation was more relative to my adhikar. I'm suffering. I want to be free from suffering. I want to be delivered from material existence. Now Mahaprabhu says, nadanam najanam nasundaram kavitam va jagadish kamai mama janmani janmanishvare. This is not a concern for him, but this is higher. This is in Ruchi, he's saying this, right? So our adhikar may be lower. So then the question is, should I think beyond my adhikar and try to meditate there? Or so you can try that, but you could also think, I would like to be free from suffering. Suffering is caused by material attachment, and it appears in the mind. So I would like to control my mind. I would like to control my senses, through which, because they're not controlled, I'm entering into the world and attached to things that don't endure, and I'm suffering, right? So it's good to get the kind of mechanics of it all down. I'm suffering. This is why I'm suffering. And this is the means to overcome it, which is part of bhakti. So if you want to meditate like that, you can, but then you should think like this. Let me control my mind. Let me control myself. Let me become free from the sufferings that born of attachments, so that I can more fully give myself for the pleasure of Radha Krishna and enter into their family, the community. So you should connect the lower with the higher. Well, the focus may be on the lower, connected to the higher at the same time. Does that help? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, chant and be happy. Okay, or chant and be unhappy that your chanting is not yet making you happy because you're too attached to other things. Okay, what else? Another question?
Yes, Krishnadas has a question.
Okay.
Dandavats, good morning, Guru Maharaj.
Morning.
I've heard from some devotees referencing a portion of Ragvartma Chandrika that there's a majestic kind of region or expansion of Goloka Vrindavan that I guess if one is really attached to Vaidimarg bhajan of Braj Krishna, then they attain this realm and they serve him in an Aishwarya mood. I tried looking in Ragvartma Chandrika and I couldn't find a specific reference to this, but maybe I missed something. But I guess I'm a bit confused how it's possible that one who has the ideal of serving in Braj could remain attached to Vaidimarg and ultimately attain a Aishwarya kind of position. Because I was under the impression that a sadhaka who has the ideal to serve Krishna in Vrindavan naturally develops lobha to serve like one of the Brajbasis, and as they approach Ruchi, then they embrace Ragmarg in full. So I was wondering if you could speak about this and clarify this.
Right. Well, what Vishwanath Chaudhuri Thakur is talking about there is a mixture of Vaidhi and Rag that is focused on Radha and Krishna. Typically, if you have a mixture of Vaidhi and Rag worshipping in pursuit of Madhurya Rasa, for example, one can attain a position of being a queen in Dwarka. I believe he explains that there. But what if you're too attached to Radha and Krishna? Then you can attain a realm outside of the center of Vrindavan, which is Gokul, in Goloka, where there is a Swakiya. There's some more Aishvarya there in one sense, but the main difference is not Aishvarya as it is Swakiya as opposed to Parakiya. Jiva Goswami emphasized Swakiya, some say for a certain sector of followers and so forth. And so such a realm exists, but it's not our interest. So it's there in Raghavart Chandrika. That's look up Swakiya. I think you'll find it there. And I think he describes it in that way. Fixed on Radha and Krishna, but mixing Vaidhi with Raga. Now we may be, as an aside from that, we may be, our ideal may be Raga Bhakti, but we maybe only have full adhikar for Vaidhi Bhakti, and our motivation for practice may be derived from largely from the motivation that drives Vaidhi Bhakti, the do's and don'ts of scripture and so on and so forth, instead of love. But still we may be charmed by the love, and we come in that line, so this is our ideal and our focus. In that stage, there may be a mixture of Vaidhi and Rag, but that's not the same thing. That's where we're crossing over from a Vaidhi to a purely Rag Marg. And that's the ideal. But I don't know of any examples. There may be examples from other sampradayas of this idea, Swakiya of Radha and Krishna, examples of someone attaining that. But yeah, he does make that statement. I don't think it's found anywhere else, but it's similar to what Abhay Krishna asked a couple of weeks back about, is there any Jagannath Puri Leelas in Goloka? Because you have these three centers, right? You have Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka in Goloka. What about Jagannath Puri? So some say on the outer fringe, outer petals, there's some Jagannath Puri Gaura Leelas, right? So, but I never found any scripture for that. This is coming from Vishwanath. He doesn't give any scriptural support. I think he gives some logical support for the possibility. But it's not much of a concern for us. So our takeaway from it is more like, okay, well, we don't want that. So we want to pursue pure Rag Marg, All right, what else? Another question?
There's a couple of follow-ups in the comment section. Ananta Govinda is wondering, how is it possible? Because one of the basic tenets of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is that Jiva Tattva can't expand himself, or like a Jiva can't expand himself. So how is it that Brahma can expand himself to the earth while being the Brahma as Hari does? If I understood.
I didn't say that he expanded himself. I said that he vacated his post.
So somebody took over for that time.
Yeah. I'll give you an example of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Brahma's post was vacated for some time, and Gopakumar took the post. So we have an example. So we say, he had to take birth. So he had to vacate his post to take birth, right? Otherwise, he'd have been in Brahma's position for a long, long time, right? So vacated the post, took birth in Gaura Lila. Someone else took the post, and Haridas attained the ideal in the form of art. Through Gaura lila, he overcame the offense.
Right. There was an interesting thing that Mohini said also, that she was just reading from the Bhagavatam, that one of the reasons that what was it, that Krishna wanted to eliminate the Yadus was that he wanted to reestablish the devatas among the Yadus back into their positions in Svarga. So anyway, it was a nice, interesting little thing that the demigods came down for Krishna's appearance.
Taking their posts.
Right.
Somebody else had to fulfill them because the sun was still moving and the wind was still blowing. That's her point, right? Yeah. Yeah, very nice.
Okay, well, let's see who's next. There is a question from Gunjan Sharma. She says, Dandavat Pranam Maharaj, thank you so much for your kind mercy.
You can say, these cowherd boys, ignorant of scripture, just young boys, they dethroned Brahma, the powerful Brahma. The manager of the whole universe was kicked off his throne by their behalf. Anyway, that he became attracted to. Go ahead. Sorry.
So, yeah, and of course, no worries. Gunjan Sharma says, what is the significance and meaning of gopis being compared to elephants, or becoming an elephant to serve Krishna, as seen in a famous painting from Braj?
I don't know. I've never seen that painting, for one. And, there are many artists, there are many poets, there are many authors who have written about, and musicians, sung about, painted, and so forth about Krishna. But in my own practice, based on experience, what is really of interest to us is to hear songs about Krishna that are sung by those who are under the auspices of a exalted member of our paribar, or of our sampradaya, paintings, so forth, books, poetry, and so on. Otherwise, there's all kinds of things out there. Someone posted a picture. We have a forum. Those of you may not know this. Of course, we have a Sri Caitanya Sangha group forum on Facebook, but there's also one called Preyo Bhakti. And I comment on there as often as I can. But someone posted a picture there of Krishna and Balaram. It looked like an Orison type of art from Orion. And Rama had, Sankarshan Balaram had 4 arms, and Krishna, Vasudeva had 4 arms, no problem. But in one of the hands of Krishna was the flute. So, typically Sankarshan and Vasudeva were the expansions of Krishna and Balaram. For lilas in Mathura and Dwarka, Krishna's not holding a flute. So what's the significance? The significance is probably that the author didn't know that, the painter didn't know that. So it's important who does the painting, who sings the song, who wrote the book. And so life is short. And you want to focus your energy on where you're actually going to get tangible spiritual results. And certain things, for that matter, we might be interested to ponder about. It may not be of our actual spiritual interest. Last week, you asked me about why there were, directions. One gopi is in this northeast corner, another's in the southwest corner, and so on. I answered, well, there are directions, in the spiritual world, just like there are. It's a sacred geography, and there are elements there: earth, water, fire. But it's not like here, so on and so forth. That's one answer. But the reply may have come. It didn't, but someone could have said, but what is the significance of this gopi's in this quadrant, that gopi's in that quadrant, this gopi's in this direction? Why this gopi's, attached with this? What is the significance? And the answer to such questions is go there and find out. You should go there. There are many, 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 many things there. We could not possibly write them all down, talk about them. And if I haven't heard them talked about, or they haven't come to me and I'm talked about them, then I say, go there and find out. Prabhupada was very fond of that type of response. Why don't you go there and find out? There are many things to find out and know. And the way to find them all out and fully satisfy your curiosity is to go there. And you've been given the equipment, the necessary vehicle, the tools to go there. So focus on those tools for going there. Find a guru, take shelter, follow the practices, put on blinders, right? So that like you put on a horse, so that the horse will go straight on the race, straight to the finish, and not even notice the other horse on the other side, right? To go straight. This is how to know everything. All your questions, more questions than you could possibly even come up with, will be answered by that. So the curious mind is good to a point, but there's a famous English saying, curiosity killed the cat. So you have to be careful about that. Elephants. Krishna is sometimes described as an elephant in heat. So maybe the artist was trying to pick gopis as she-elephants in correspondence with that type of idea. Jai. What else?
That was wonderful. The next question is from Krishna Sevak.
Okay.
Please accept my obeisances, Guru Maharaj.
Jai.
I've been reading Sri Preyo Bhakti Rasarnava.
Rasarnava.
How to say?
Rasarnava.
Rasarnava.
Yeah.
By Sri Nayanananda Thakura.
Yes.
Relishing the pastimes of the Sakas. And I came across a verse that really threw me. And I kind of just let it go and kept reading, but I was like, I got to find out what this is about, because he doesn't say anything about it. Regarding the Priyanarma Saka, he says, the group of cowherd boys known as Priyanarma Saka's most intimate friends are a little younger than Krishna, are in knowledge of his secrets and render service unto him in the mood of girlfriends, Saki Bhav. This category includes Subal, Arjuna, etc. And I was like, Saki Bhav, what's he talking about here? And they never talks about it anywhere else. And then just keeps going on. I'm like, is that a mistake? Am I reading the wrong book? What's he? Of course, I want to get a copy of your book too, but I've been in the middle of this and it just threw me, and I just let it go. But I'm a little thrown.
Well, I'll say this: it's explained in overwhelming detail in my book. It's one of the focuses of my book. But Nayanananda Thakur is writing about the bhava that's driving his book is Priya Saka bhava. Priya Sakas are those who are like Sudama and Sridham. They're the prime examples. They are fixed in pure Sakyarasa. There are 4 types of Sakyarasa. And I should emphasize here that this has all been given by Rupa Goswami. There is, in the whole history of Indian aesthetics, even up to and just preceding Rupa Goswami, where there starts to be some aestheticians speaking about bhakti as a rasa. Prior to that, bhakti was never considered rasa amongst the in aesthetic theory. So all the way up, including those who just precede Rupa Goswami, where bhakti starts to be talked about as rasa. Nobody has given Sakya the position of a rasa, but Rupa Goswami. That's an interesting point. And of course, he has a whole different theory. his bhakti rasa is wholly transcendental, and so on and so forth. But, these are all religious people, but they're primarily the aesthetic tradition prior to Rupa Goswami and those just before him is all about rasa within poetry. So it's material emotions. And he's speaking about transcendental, transpsychological emotions. So anyway, just he gives 4 types of Sakya rasa for that matter. So he's really opened the lotus of this ideal quite widely. And of the 4, you have sakas, you have priyas, you have suhrit sakas, you have priya sakas, and priyanarma sakas, right? So the suhrit saka, or the saka, is a saka whose sakya bhav is bundled together with dasya, but he's a saka because the sakya is dominant there. Then you have the suhrit sakas, whose sakya rasa is bundled together with vatsalya, but the sakya is prominent, so they're considered in sakya rasa. And then you have just holy sakya rasa. This is the priya saka, right?
Yep.
With no other influence. So this is the bhava that's driving the book of Dandavats Thakura. So still he has to mention the priyanarma sakas, but he doesn't go into that. That's why he doesn't go into that. Now the translation there, that they act as Krishna's girlfriends. Obviously, that it would be a bit of a what the heck is that? And so I can understand your question the way it's explained. But he is referencing the commentary of Jiva Goswami and Ujjwal Nilmani, where the Priyanarma sakas are described. The idea there is not quite what it sounds like in the translation of Dandavats Thakura's book, Prema Bhakti Rasarnava. The idea is that these type of cowherd boys, they may be little younger than Krishna, but they're mature also for their age, like Krishna is mature for his age. So when Krishna's romantic sentiments in the Prakat Lila start to manifest, they're attuned to them, this aspect of their friend, so they want to assist their friend. Now, to become familiar with his romantic feelings and the nuances and that whole aspect of his life, the Priyanarma Saka is typically one who's pursuing this ideal, follows like Subal or Subahu, let's say Subal, the principal Priyanarma Saka, as a group leader, his guru and a group leader, but also has a female group leader, a Gopa group leader, and a Gopi group leader. So the Gopi group leader is helpful to that Priyanarma Saka sadhaka for becoming familiar with a side of the romantic life of Krishna. So he interacts with the gopis. He might bring messages. He might try to pacify Radharani when she's upset, knows what to say, and so forth. And the idea, what Jiva Goswami says is sometimes that this is referred to as Sakhi Bhav, Sakhi Bhav, rather than Sakya Bhav, Sakhi Bhav. It means, but what it means is during these romantic affairs, these sakas, these cowherd boys, their male egos, if you will, don't rise. So if they were to be present, then arguably they could be attracted to the different gopis. You understand?
Yeah.
Recedes to the background, and they have no attraction to the other gopis, and they're only helping the one. They're only merging with the one male ego of Krishna, if you will. And then sometimes they would take the side of the gopis, sometimes they take the side of Krishna, depend upon what the circumstance and so forth. And they participate very much like Radha's Manjuris participate in assisting, bringing the divine couple, together. That's a brief answer. Does that help?
Yeah, it seems complicated.
It's very
Position.
It's very complicated. Yeah, it's very complicated, but it's very. This is a very unique contribution of Rupa Goswami, the Priyanarmasaka in aesthetic theory. Rupa Goswami, there is no such hero, assistant to the romantic hero. There are different types of assistants in classical drama for the hero. Male assistants who will assist him to one extent or another in his romantic life, but there's no Priyanarmasaka. That's the contribution of Rupa Goswami. And that's how he describes these type of boys. It's complicated, but it's worth understanding because the excellence of Sakyarasa and the way in which one of the ways, a very prominent way in which it exceeds, if you will, the excellence of Vatsalya Rasa, is that because of its compatibility with Madhurya Rasa, it can be influenced by Madhurya Rasa, be touched by Madhurya Rasa, like yogurt can be touched with yogurt. And what is the result? The yogurt becomes sweeter. So there's Sakyarasa touched by Madhurya becomes richer. And within the context of Sakyarasa, they taste Mahabhav, which is typically otherwise only the exclusive experience of the gopis. It's not for Dasya Bhaktas or Vatsalya Bhaktas or ordinary Sakas. So it's worth understanding. And as I say in my book, which isn't out yet, but will be shortly, it's really explained in great detail. You'll have to pay a lot of close attention to follow all the arguments and whatnot, or the logic of it, but it's worth your time. So
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. I look forward to reading your book.
Okay, Haribol. Okay. So I guess we're just about out of time, or is there another short question?
There's one more question. Let's see how long it is, because I don't know. But Krishna Chaitanya, can you ask your question? Well, Shamsundar just said, let's not push over time. He's exhausted. Well, I mean, I guess we could leave it.
We don't need to push anything. Should I, or should I not?
I guess it's up to Guru Maharaj. Shamsundar is asking not to go over time, but
Let's defer to our translator there, because he's bringing this message to many devotees in Latin America. We'll invite you to come back next week and answer this question. We'll stop there. We only have like half a minute in the allotted time. Thank you all for your questions, time, and see you next week. Haribol.
Guru Maharaj ki jai. Thank you. So yeah, Krishna Chaitanya, let's start with your question next week, so it won't drag on like it has been for 3 weeks now. So a couple short things. I'd like to thank you, everybody who took part in Guru Maharaj's health test, donating for that. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it very much. And the other thing is that next Thursday, Uddhava is going to be speaking on the nectar of instruction on the Tattva Vivek classes. And I feel like I had something else to say, but I can't remember offhand, but I'll post it on the Sri Caitanya Sangha group once I remember. But that's all. And I hope to see you all next week. Have a good week. Haribol.